Hi, and welcome to the Higher Education Access Corner. I'm your host, Tiffanie Devan. In today's episode, we are celebrating Financial Aid Awareness Month. Every February, Financial Aid Awareness Month is a month just set aside to making sure that students and families are aware of the importance of financial aid. So, those of us in the higher education community, financial aid experts, we really do a more concentrated effort to get out awareness. We share tips, we share resources, all about applying for financial aid from the federal level, from the state levels, from the institutions that are out there. We want students and families to know that financial aid is available. It's a viable option. So I thought today's episode would be a great time to really kind of remind those students who may have heard this from us before, and also then to share the information for the first time for those of you all who've never really yet had to bark down that journey of getting to financial aid or how to process financial aid. So for today's episode, I'm going to talk about some basic things. I'm going to talk about what financial aid is and remind those the importance of applying for financial aid. And then I'll also make sure you know why you're applying for financial aid. Because sometimes when talking to students and families, they're told to make sure you apply for financial aid, but they don't quite get why. So today we're going to unpack the why behind that as well. And then, of course, I'm going to share some of those tips and resources that will hopefully ease the stress of applying for financial aid for everyone. So let me get started by just simply talking about what financial aid is. Financial aid is simply resources or funds that's going to help students and their families cover the cost of an education at a post-secondary school. Post-secondary meaning your business schools, technical schools, trade schools, community colleges, four-year schools, or beyond. So whether a student's planning to go to a two-year school, four-year school, we want to say it's all encompassing. College and career schools can be costly. However, the financial aid is a great start to helping students and families reduce those costs and reduce the burden and the stress of figuring out where the funds are going to come from because you may not have it. In fact, most families do not have enough funds or didn't quite prepare in a manner that will allow them to cover 100% of the costs of a student's education or their children's education completely out of their pocket. So again, when we tackle into financial aid, remember that it is a resource, it is a tool that's going to help those students get the funds that they need, or at least get them a little closer to what they need to covering their school costs. And financial aid looks different depending on the school that a student plans to attend. So the types of financial aid that are out there, we have grants and scholarships, which is what we call your gift aid or free money. Both forms of financial aid that do not have to be repaid. And that's where we always want students to land. Because if you don't have to repay it and it's something that you've earned on merit or based off of your financial need in your household, it's a great way to kind of cover those costs without it putting more of a financial strain on you. There's also work study. Work study is where a student can get a job, often coordinated through the state or through their school, and then the funds that they earn can help to go cover their cost of attendance at the school. And remember, for those of you who've listened to our podcast or attended any of our financial aid night presentations at your local schools, covering the cost of the education, when we talk about those costs, we mean your tuition and fees, we mean your housing and your food, transportation expenses, miscellaneous living expenses, and then there's sometimes you might have some student loan fees that are in there, or maybe you need to get certain types of licensing in order to pursue your career. All of those things are what we consider your cost of attendance. So financial aid, if awarded, can help cover those particular costs. And then we have our last type of official form of financial aid, and that's what we call your student loans. Student loans, it's borrowed money that has to be repaid quite often with interest. And I do always tell everyone, make sure you're looking for it in that order. Free money first, those grants and those scholarships. And then we want to go for the work study. If a student thinks they're ready and they can do the work and the school balance, it's a great way to gain some experience in a specific field of study. But I do caution folks for the first time. Let's say you're a student or you're the parent of a student who's about to go away to school for the first time, and time management is not their friend. They've not yet mastered time management where they're able to get up, be responsible to get to class on time, study. Student has to remember that they have to still keep their grades up and go to classes. They have to study and they have to get to work. So if they've not yet figured out that work school life balance, that might not be the first thing that they want to do that very first semester away from school. What I always tell folks is if you're not good at that right now, practice it before you get away to school. Because work study is a great thing, but if the student doesn't successfully master it, that time management, they would possibly compromise their grades, which we don't want, or they could miss out on an opportunity to actually earn the funds to help cover the cost of the education, therefore leaving a gap that's out there that has to be covered. And it's an unexpected gap. So again, work study is a viable option. And the other thing, again, student loans are your last resort. Student loans, I also put a caution on you borrow wisely if you have to borrow. It should be a last resort, but it can still be a viable option. You just want to make sure that you do it wisely. And we have a great website that I'll share as a resource at the end to help students and families prepare. So what is financial aid? Again, resources to help students and parents cover the cost of the education at a post-secondary school or college or career school. And again, it comes in the form of your grants and scholarships, which we talked about as gift aid. We also then talked about the work study. So it's also work study, and it can also be student loans. Student loans come from your private sector as well as the Federal Department of Education that are out there. Now, the next part I talk about today is, well, how do you apply? So we know financial aid does exist, right? So how do you get to that financial aid? The biggest thing in the first step is to complete the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA form. And you've heard us talk about this a lot. You've heard the schools talk about it. You've heard the federal government talk about it, because that is the largest application that is out there. Free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, is a federal form that collects key data about the student, their parents if they're a dependent student, or their spouses if they are married. And it pretty much tries to figure out the financial strength. So it's going to collect information about the student, who they are, what schools are you interested in attending. It's also going to want to know what type of income they've received over the past to assess that financial strength. This is an annual application, so every year a student wants to apply for financial aid, they're going to need to sit down and complete a new FAFSA application. This year, it opened up in December after some delays due to them still working out the application. Next year, it's going to go back to its regular opening of October 1st. So October 1st, 2025, the next application will be due. But let's just pause here for a minute. For any student who wants to be enrolled in school or plans to be enrolled in school between July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, you want to make sure that you're completing the 25-26 free application for federal student aid. It is available now. Students can go to studentaid.gov in order to complete the process. So what's needed to actually get started? Students need to have what we call a studentaid.gov account. And any contributor to the student's application will also need to have a studentaid.gov account. These accounts will act as you're basically creating a username and a password for yourselves. And it allows the students and the contributor, it allows them to create, to get access to the FAFSA application. So you're actually going to enter all of your key information on the FAFSA form after you've completed your studentaid.gov account. So if a parent already has a studentaid.gov account, they don't need to create a new one. It's theirs. They will follow it. But once they create it, it is theirs. And then they can use it to access more information about their federal aid. If they've had it for the students can do the same thing. So studentaid.gov accounts are required to be completed, again, by the student and contributor. And we always suggest that they do it at least 3 to 4 days before they sit down to do the FAFSA application. And that's because it has to go through a verification process. So what happens is anyone who's putting their information in the system through the studentaid.gov account, it's going to verify your authentication, your authenticity, basically, making sure that you are who you say you are. So it's going to match it up with the Social Security Administration. Make sure that Social Security numbers are entered correctly. Make sure the date of birth is entered correctly, and make sure the names are the legal names as they appear with the Social Security Administration. That way, it lessens your chances of things being kicked back or delayed because you have to get through that verification process. Now, once you're done with that, students and families can then go in and knock out that FAFSA application that's there. It's important that students realize the application that they are completing because it's going to be specific with information that is required. For example, if you're doing the 25-26 FAFSA application, which is the current application out there right now, it's going to ask for income information specifically from 2023. Now, mindfully, I do realize some families have already completed their 2024 tax returns, but they still don't want 2024. They're going to collect 2023 tax return information. So always be mindful of the information that is going to be collected. So it may ask about income information. There is skip logic that's involved. So it skips over some questions for people if it does not apply, that is out there. Also, the cool thing about the FAFSA is there are lots of help features that are on there. There's a help center where a person can actually chat with, talk to, or email the Federal Student Aid Information Center directly. So you can get a lot of help and resources with getting it done. The good thing to remember is that you have time to complete it, but you don't want to wait too long because there are deadlines that do apply. So the federal government, the state government, as well as some schools will have their own priority filing deadlines. So make sure you get the FAFSA completed as soon as possible. Double check with the deadlines for everyone just to make sure that you're up to date. And we've talked about these on the podcast, so you can go back and listen to a few of the podcasts, but you can also go to studentaid.gov to get the deadlines. You can visit FIA's website at fia.org to also understand those deadlines. Our deadlines are going to be May 1st, 2025 and August 1st, 2025. But we don't want you to wait that long. We want you to knock this FAFSA out immediately. The other thing when it comes to FAFSA is, well, financial aid in general is. FAFSA is that first application that needs to be completed. It collects the data and it shares it with every school that the student lists on their FAFSA application. Lots of privacy laws that are out there. So if you don't list those schools on the FAFSA application, they don't get access to that information. So it's important. You want to make sure you list the schools. Students can list up to 20 schools that they want to receive their information. They don't have to have applied or even been accepted to list the school. So that's the other good thing. So if you're still undecided about a school, just list them on the FAFSA application, and then that way the school will have your information. In addition to that, so not only the FAFSA application, so FAFSA application, let me slow up a little bit. The FAFSA application itself is going to collect key data about the student and their family, their households, and it's going to be shared, and it's needed because schools, state agencies such as FIA, who oversee the Pennsylvania State financial aid, Pennsylvania State grants, and other special programs, we use that information to determine the financial aid for the students. Schools look at that information to determine it. So your award is determined on the results of the FAFSA. Now, from a FIA standpoint, we also are going to collect from first-time applicants additional information. So we always tell students, after you've successfully completed your FAFSA application, what we want you all to do is to make sure that you go in and you keep checking your emails, because you're going to get an email from FIA with some reminders on what to do next, so that you can then go out, activate your state grant username and password, update your access to their FIA system, and then from there, we'll tell you to complete the Pennsylvania State Grant form. We'll tell you to complete the high school form, and then you're done from a FIA standpoint. But what you also want to do is follow up with the schools. Sometimes schools have forms that they want you to complete as well, so you get those completed. And then the biggest thing to do is always follow up with your emails. Make sure that everything went through successfully. If there's anything that's outstanding and they say, hey, we need some more information, share it, whether it's coming from the school directly, whether it's coming through from Federal Student Aid, and you see an email that pops up that you did something wrong. Make sure you correct your errors, correct your mistakes. If you've made any, follow up with the school on the next steps. And then once you've applied and been accepted to the schools, they'll let you know what you're going to get in financial aid. So I wanted to share that as a reminder, and I've said it all before, but because it's Financial Aid Awareness Month, we're just throwing that information out there again to make sure everyone is aware of how to complete the FAFSA application. Now, for some, you may say, well, you know what? I'm a little overwhelmed by all of this process. How do I get some help for that? And I always say, well, I'm glad you asked. So for those who need assistance, assistance is available. I, again, am one of 13 higher education access partners throughout Pennsylvania. And what we do is we work with post-secondary, secondary schools, community organizations to assist students and families with completing them. We host FAFSA workshops all the time So check in with your local schools, check in with FIA at our website to see when our next event is coming up, to see if you can get that assistance. If you need one-on-one assistance with questions, again, all of our contact information is available at FIA.org. The goal is to help all of our students and families get what they need so they can get those applications completed in a timely manner and get them done correctly. So you're not in it alone. For those in the high school level, check in with your counselors. Your high school counselors may have already scheduled a FAFSA date, and if you've missed it, they still have access to us so that they can get you the tools you need to maybe we can still answer some questions or do some more one-on-one sessions with you. So again, we do want to help you. We want to make sure you get it right. Also, don't shy away from those post-secondary schools. Give them a call, reach out to them. They are more than willing to assist you throughout this process as well. So you do have help. And again, don't forget that Federal Student Aid Information Center, which is located at studentaid.gov. You may talk directly with someone from FSA. You can chat with them, you can email them, you can talk to them about specific questions that you may have on your FAFSA application. So the goal is to get this information in. And then the other part that I said in the beginning, we're going to talk about the why, because sometimes when I'm talking to students, they'll say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this FAFSA. And I've asked students, do you know why you're completing this? And they're kind of like, well, no, because my counselor told me to, because you told me we needed to get it done. But it doesn't connect that this is kind of like the gateway to getting access to the financial assistance that they might need. So when you're completing your free application for federal student aid, when you're looking for scholarships, when you're applying for all of the different types of financial aid, it gets you in a position, it helps you to become eligible, or it puts you in the game to see if in fact you will qualify for need-based aid that will come from the federal government, state government, or even the institutional aids that are out there. And need-based aid has to be determined by doing a need analysis on the financial strength within your household. So you have to complete financial aid paperwork to see if you can actually receive the financial aid. That's the first step. If you don't do that, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that bill is going to come. You're going to school, or at least you're hoping to go to some post-secondary school. And what's going to happen is you're going to get a bill. And I always tell students that bill comes in your name. It doesn't come in your parents' name or your guardian's name. That tuition bill will come to you. And at that point, they're going to say, here's our bill. You'll see the cost of attendance. You'll see the bill. And if you didn't apply for financial aid, the whole bill is your responsibility. And keep in mind, some schools vary in cost. You might get a tuition bill depending on the school that you're going to, and it says it's $2,000 for the semester. Another school might say it's $50,000, right? Because every school is not the same when it comes to their price points. So how many of us just have $50,000 just set aside to write out a check and send off a payment? Not everyone. So that is the reason why you want to make sure you're completing the financial aid paperwork, because hopefully you can get some need-based aid. And the more aid that you can get, and gift aid, remember that's your money that you don't have to repay, like grants and scholarships, that minimizes that balance for which you're actually going to have to pay. So your balance is going to get lower and lower because it's going to be filled with the free aid that's out there. Even work study, or if you have to do a student loan and you're borrowing responsibly, then that's okay as well. But you're going to get something back if you apply and you do it diligently. Some may say, well, you know what, I didn't get a great deal back, but I got something. Well, every little bit helps. I always tell students, don't stop looking for scholarships as well, because at the end of the day, when that bill does come, depending on what you may or may not have received in financial aid, scholarships help bridge that gap between, what's due and what, didn't get covered in financial aid. So it helps to also minimize what you might have to borrow in student loans. So some students will say, well, you know what, I'm kind of stuck now. This is where I'm at. Got to apply for some student loans. And that's okay if you've exhausted all other free options that are out there. But continue to look, because you may be able to borrow less because you've applied for financial aid, or you may not have to borrow at all if you continue to look through. So everybody's situation is different. We can't guarantee what you will get, but I can guarantee you for certain that you will not receive any form of need-based financial aid if you, in fact, do not apply for financial aid. So those key steps, again, complete the FAFSA application, but make sure students create their studentaid.gov account at least 3 to 4 days before they sit down to complete their financial aid, their FAFSA application. The other part, don't forget to look for the emails to look for that notice that comes from FIA regarding your FIA applications for first-time applicants, for Pennsylvania first-time applicants as well, because there's a Pennsylvania state grant form and high school form that needs to be completed. Also check with the school's financial aid offices and always go out to their website. If you're doing in-person visits, go to the school's financial aid office, ask them about their institutional aid that they may have. What do they have available to incoming students? And then once you become a student and you're already there, check in every single year. Maybe there are additional opportunities that might help to come your way. So those are a few tips that I give to everyone regarding all of that. So now let's talk about a couple of resources. So a couple of the resources and a few additional tips I do want to share. For a lot of households and a lot of folks, they'll say it's a little bit overwhelming. So I say start early. Start educating yourselves about the different types of financial aid that are out there, the different options that are available. Start as early as possible. If you have kids in elementary school, that's not too early to start. The more you know, the more you're aware, the easier and less stressful this process can be. Also, in addition to that, do not assume that you will not qualify for financial aid. It looks at several different factors. The cost of the school is also included in that. So don't assume you're not going to qualify for financial aid. Apply anyway and ask for assistance. Again, we realize it's overwhelming. So again, all of the resources that I talked about before, including us as Access Partners, we're here to assist you. You're not in this by yourselves. So rely on the experts to kind of get you through this. Now, where can you go to learn about more financial aid? One of the cool things about Financial Aid Awareness Month in February is there's lots of information floating around. And there's a hashtag. It's FinAidFeb. So it's hashtag FINAIDFEB. So FinAidFeb with the hashtag in front. If you did a search through that, you'll see a lot of information come up. You'll see resources, videos, just about everything. NASFA has a website and they kind of did this, they started this hashtag. So if you pull that up, you'll see a lot of stuff from them that shows up. If you go to FIA's website, FIA.org, we have a great deal of information about financial aid that is out there. We have a resource page for students and families, as well as one for educators. We have our podcast. So go back and listen to some of the old podcasts that talks about all of the different topics that are out there. Some of my favorite FIA websites, educationplanner.org is an awesome one just to get information about planning, preparing, and the financial aid process for that. It's great assessments and tools even for students about how they study and finding the perfect career. So that's a great one. YouCanDealWithIt.com is another one of our websites that is out there. And that's more about financial literacy, but you'll get some good information on that one. And then MySmartBorrowing.org. To me, that is an awesome website of ours here at FIA. It's a great tool and resource that I tell students before you borrow any funds, go out to this website. It's kind of like an interactive tool and it's free of charge that kind of helps a student really assess, what their career plans are, what that starting salary might look like when they're going off into school, how much they might need to borrow, and what that student loan debt could possibly look like. Lets them know if you're trying to overborrow or if you're right on track with everything. So to me, again, great resources and great tools. When we're talking from the federal level, again, studentaid.gov is like your one-stop shop for everything of understanding financial aid. They have videos, tools. FSA also has a YouTube channel. So does FIA. We have YouTube channels as well. And the other one is collegecost.ed.gov. That's also through the Federal Department of Education. And it's lots of information in there as well. They have one called like a net price calculator that helps students and families like really do a good comparison of what they truly would be paying at the end of the day. So what a net price calculator does is it looks at the cost of the school. And if a student was awarded some funds, it's going to say, okay, let's pull out the free money, your grants and your scholarships. And then what's left over is what your net cost really looks like. So if you're doing a comparison of schools, you compare your net costs. And that really kind of lets you see what you're receiving and what you might still owe with everything. So I gave you a lot of information here about financial aid, and that is the purpose of Financial Aid Awareness Month. It's not to overload you, it's to let you hopefully take it in small bites, small pieces. The goal for it all is for students and families to have a clear understanding of what financial aid is, how to apply for financial aid, and to make sure that you are applying, knowing in fact that If you apply early within the deadlines, you continue to look for those scholarships. Hopefully, you're going to be in the best position to find some affordable schools, get your top choice if it's out there, and minimize the need for student loans or how much you have to borrow in student loans. But again, if you can go student loan free, that is always a great opportunity, and that's the plan. So again, I'm here at FIA.org, and you can find all of the Access partners there. Again, I'm one of 13 for FIA. And so if you have questions or concerns about anything, reach out to us. We're happy to assist you. Don't forget about the schools. Don't forget about the federal government and any other resource that is out there. The goal is to help our students get everything you need so that you get a little closer to an affordable choice for you. So thanks for tuning in with me today here at the Higher Education Access Corner, and I will see you soon.